Hello, this is Trent Clark. Welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, international speaker, longtime coach in professional baseball, coaching in 3 World Series. And I have got an awesome show today with 2 of the best. My buddies here, Dave Zumpano and Guy Remond. Raymond, right?
Remond, yes,
Remond.
close.
Remond.
Remond.
There's no why. We Americans, we can't get it right? Remond.
Listen, I get Gary Redmond is the name I get called the most often.
Gary, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
So listen, you were gonna love this episode. We got from both sides of the pond here with Dave. Where, Dave? You in Florida?
I'm in Florida currently. My main office is in New York, obviously, central New York, Syracuse.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Dave, the ultimate New Yorker here, and I got Guy from the other side of the pond over in Manchester.
In
right?
Manchester.
That's right, and he's a big city fan. So come on, bring it on, folks. So all you United
weekend.
folks, you can get off right now. So, but welcome to the show, guys. Super excited to have you. For those who don't know, Winners Find a Way is our show. If you have ever faced stiff adversity, felt like the losses are mounting, you need to find a better way. Well, I think you came to the right place, whether you're already an entrepreneur, athlete, founder, or just looking to take you to the next level, to elite performance. I think this is the perfect podcast for you. We talk to 1%ers all around the world, multiple diversities, and it's awesome. And so this will be no less of another awesome episode, and I'm super excited about it. So let's break in a little bit to first, guys, tell where they can find you. Dave, where can they find you online?
I my personal email is always the easiest, dzumpano@eplawcenter.com, E like Echo, P like Papa. That's my original company I started, which was my law firm. And then I think that's probably the easiest. And then there's always dzumpano@guider.legal.
Nice. Okay, good. And then you're on LinkedIn, all that good stuff,
LinkedIn
right?
and all that, Facebook. Yeah.
I'm
pretty
all
easy to find. You type it up, as long as I don't come up with America's Most Wanted, you'll be good. As long as that picture doesn't come up, we're good.
No, that's Dean Zumpano, right? Like he's on the American Side, an alias.
Yeah.
Guy, tell us a little bit where they can find you.
So I'll do like Dave. I'll give you my personal email address, which is Guy, Guy, and then Remond, REMOND @gmail.com. And again, like Dave, same rules apply for the guider.legal address, which is Remond, REMOND @guider.legal.
And that's GUIDR, not
yes.
ER, right?
GUIDR.
Yeah, Guider. Yes.
And on LinkedIn, just my name, Guy Remond. I'm pretty unique. In I don't think there's any other Guy Remonds in the world, so I'm even easier to find than Dave. And I definitely am not on the FBI most wanted.
But we did find out there was a Guy Redmond though, because I had a whole exchange with him one day, and I was getting so frustrated. I'm like, Guy, what is wrong? He goes, "Are you sure you're talking to the right person?"
That's funny. Yeah. Well, Guy, it's Interpol over there, right? You're not an FBI guy. It's Interpol. So like
Interpol is a European thing. Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, pleasure to have you guys on. Let's talk. Let's start, Guy. We're going to start with you. You grew up there, 11-year stint, various manager positions. Then you go CEO of Cake Solutions Limited, recognized as Deloitte, UK Technology Fast 50, which is pretty cool. Then you've invested in all these companies, actively working these companies as a non-executive director or chairman role, right? And then you're helping them lead in the leadership drive to successful outcomes, which is critical, like you had with Cake Solutions. And you did that over 16 years. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. I literally when I started, I knew nothing about business. I mean, literally nothing. I'd come out the corporate world, retail corporate world, and you kind of work within certain confines there, and there's limited ability to affect margins in any huge way, and you just had to work in a particular way, and running your business was just so different. And honestly, I kind of made it up as I went along, and fortunately our roles were clear. I set the business up in 2001 with a guy called Rob Harrop, and he turned out to be a brilliant technologist. And one of the reasons why we kind of got together, he looked after the technology side, I looked after the commercial side. I knew nothing about the commercial side, right? So I learned as I went along. And, you know, one of the things I can do now with the companies that I work with, these high growth companies, is just help them avoid some of the mistakes that I made along the way, and, you know, hopefully get them to where they want to get to a lot quicker.
How did you guys meet? And was Guider the original kind of premise for you guys moving forward together for you and Dave?
So we we met across a lunch table, didn't we, in Toronto, Dave?
Yeah.
And we were introduced by a British guy called Ash Forer, and basically Ash had been speaking to Dave, and knew he needed some help from a tech point of view, and he just, you know, introduced us. Dave just said his opening line was, I won't try and insult the New York population by doing the accent. He just said, I need a tech guy. And so we got chatting, and we didn't have long to talk, actually, but we kind of got on. And Dave, at the end of the day, came to see me. He had to rush to get a plane, I think, but came to see me, gave me his business card. And that was in September, October 2019. And actually, that was the last time we've ever met in person because of COVID. I'm just so excited that I'm going over on flying over on Sunday and to meet Dave and the team. Dave for the second time, the team in New York for the first time next week, and we've got a full week of strategy stuff, which I'm really looking forward to. But that's kind of our story. That's how we met, and you know. We actually went through 4 or 5 name iterations until we came to Guider that we really liked. And you know, when the IP lawyers did their bit, you know, it appears that, you know, everything was okay to use that name and so on. So yeah, that's the story, really.
I would even add to the story another dimension, because that's the high level. One of the things as an entrepreneur that I've learned over the years is my favorite 4-letter word, and that is EASY, easy. If it's not easy, pay attention. And what I mean, I'm not saying easy like it's not hard to build a business. I'm saying, are you getting roadblocks everywhere? So I want to go into the micro detail of Guy and I. We literally had a 15-minute lunch. Now, when I said I need a tech guy, I didn't really put in that his name had to be Guy, but it just turned out to be that way, right? So then I said, Guy, listen, we'll set up a 30-minute call. We'll talk about it. If it's worth a second call, we'll set up a second call. We set up a 30-minute call. He's like, yeah, let's have another call. So we scheduled an hour call. Okay, we got into that. Okay, let's have another hour call. And by the 4th call, we were doing pro formas and looking at strategy, looking at models, and going, okay, I think this is viable. Now, what I mean by that is there's so many times everything becomes an obstacle. You know, you ever meet those people? You meet them and everything's a problem, right? And there's always a reason why there's a challenge. With Guy and I, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 60 minutes, 60 minutes, bam, let's figure it out. Go, let's go. Okay, how would we go? And I'm not to oversimplify this, Guy, but we've been doing that for now 2.5 years, right? We've just been getting on to the next call. We've been running the company, building the team, rolling it out nationally, 6 months ago, and we've been doing it all on. Guy and I have 1-hour calls a week. And
that's awesome.
It's a EASY when it's the right people.
Well, I think it's a good point of the winners find a way, right? Like I think a lot of people that are recognizing right now in behaviors of, some of the losing behaviors, everything's an obstacle. The smallest things seem like a major obstacle. And you're like, is that really an obstacle? Is that going to slow us down? Like, could it hinder a little bit for a small moment? Sure. But what's the way around it, over it, under it? How are we going to, move through it if necessary? And I think that's that winners find a way attitude for sure. So let's dive into how you got to Guider, Dave, because, Syracuse law back in the 90s, then you find the estate law planning center. I mean, not long after you got out of law school, then you get in the estate planning industry with the iPug Protection Trust, which is, still rolling along, right? And huge. And that was back in 2000. Now we're 22 years into that. And credited, with the Medicaid practice for lawyers in America. That was also a huge deal. And then also continue the innovation with this cloud-based law practice management system, right? So getting into software technology isn't new to you, and then you come in and like, hey, I need guy, I need this team to develop Guider, this digital, easy to use client interface platform. And talk to me a little bit about just your walk through all of that. It's really
Yeah.
been focused from a state from pretty early on.
Yeah. The funniest story is I came out of law school as a CPA. And I went to work for a regional insurance defense firm. Imagine that. I had no interest in litigation, but they had what I called the big fat gray haired guy in the corner who had this big filing cabinet full of wills from, his 40 years of practice. So I was brought in to do the estate planning. Well, after 2 years, I was their most successful new hire. I was fresh out of law school. But I had grown up in an entrepreneurial family. I grew up in a family business and things like that. So for me, it was just natural to me. Well, the funniest thing is after 2 years of success there, they fired me. But it's a funny story. They said, Dave, we love you, but you have to leave. Please take all of your clients with you, and will you stay of counsel to our firm, to do all of our estate planning? Why? They were insurance defense people. They're lawyers. They're scared to death. They didn't know what I was doing. They were afraid of malpractice, which goes full circle right into the Guider world, right, Guy? That's what Guy and I have found with lawyers now. They're scared to death of technology, and it paralyzes lawyers. So I started my own law firm doing the Estate Planning Law Center, which was estate planning, and it was just going gangbusters. And so I was just succeeding, but I had no one. I didn't have a big fat gray haired guy in the corner. So I found this national organization of lawyers that just do estate planning. And it was back in the day, we're talking 1999, they had this really neat thing called a listserv, where you could type a question and all these other lawyers from around the country would answer it within minutes. I mean, it was like the coolest thing. I'm not alone. Well, then we would meet every quarter somewhere in the country, East Coast, West Coast, Central, it would rotate. And there would be a week of training and, different things. And within a year, I was identified as one of the outstanding lawyers in the country on practice management. So they asked me to train their members on what I was doing. And that's what got started with the Medicaid practice program, where I started saying, well, I'm doing Medicaid. They said, well, you can't do Medicaid. That's for poor people. I said, well, no. It's a whole different application. So that was my first innovation in law. Then the IPUG Protection Trust was a whole different way of looking at asset protection that was not as restrictive as that lawyers had become accustomed to due to the tax rules. So my clients weren't concerned about the tax rules. They were worried about asset protection. So not getting into too much detail there, I started evolving and then created a company called Medicaid Practice Systems, which evolved into Lawyers with Purpose, which has been a membership organization helping lawyers learn to do what I did. What's it all based on? Going again back to winners always find a way. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. I did something different when I read that book. I actually started living it. And I'll never forget it. Starting in 1999, when I read it, every quarter, I would build new systems. I remember the first system I built was, how do I manage an intake call? What are the paths it goes to? So I created processes, right? The processes, the steps. Then the systems is how do you get from step to step? So over 22 years now of just continuing enhancing systems, we built a whole technology platform. And we are the first people to have this workflow systems in the estate planning area in the legal industry. So that was my next innovation. And then I brought it into the cloud in 2013 by partnering with a company called Action Step and bringing the whole practice management system into the cloud. Then my frustration was my lawyers still were struggling with technology. And then I saw what was happening with the big self-help legal sites, LegalZoom, WillsandTrust.com, all these things, who are having literally one site alone is promoting that they're about to hit their 5 millionth client. And when you think about that, that's 5 million people that went to a non-lawyer for lawyer services. And I'm a lawyer and I'm in the estate planning industry, and my job is to help what makes lawyers successful. So I was like, we have to hit this head on. The people are, listen, Dan Sullivan, where the guy and I met, always said, pay attention to the check writers. The people doing their plans or setting up their LLCs, if they're going to these big self-help websites, they're sending a loud message. Lawyers were not listening. So I started with two other ways before I met Guy. I tried it with another individual. We tried to develop it on our own. We couldn't. Then I found another big tech company. They built it, but it wasn't robust enough. And I tell you the truth, that was my third and out. I'm going to give one more try. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'm just going to move on to something else. And that third try was Guy. And from there, it was easy because we had two different skill sets. with the same core values. And I think that's another thing. I know Guy, the funny thing is, Guy and I built this entire company on a handshake. Sounds crazy. We never exchanged money. We both utilized our own monies to contribute toward what we were building together. Eventually, we got the lawyers involved and got it all legal. But again, my mother always said, again, my mother ran the family business that grew 37-fold over 25 years. She said, if you can't put your hand across the table and shake hands and look someone in the eye and trust that person, then you shouldn't be going any further. And that's what I felt like it was with Guy. It was kind of like a match made in heaven. We had the same core values. And again, the other thing is we're both successful enough on our own at this point that we didn't need each other, right? It wasn't about need. It was about want. What do we want to do to impact and change for others? And Guy saw it and I saw it. And again, anyone who does it knows we're just the front people. We have a great team of people that, see the vision and enroll others into the vision and help build all the pieces and parts out.
Well, I love that. And then, of course, you guys haven't been together for 2 years. First of all, I was worried you were going to say Guy was the, gray-haired fat guy in the corner. That's what I was worried about first. I was like, man, Guy's going to drop off the call in the first 10 minutes. So then you guys put out this digitization of law. Is that a book?
Yeah. So
you authored a book in the 2 years you're working on this stuff, and you're not even together, right? You're just working on this and knocking it out.
Yeah, it's like any of these things. It's all about collaboration, not just the collaboration between Dave and I, but collaborations between organizations that can help you do this and people that can help you do these things quicker and easier. So we actually used a company who interviewed Dave and I over Zoom. So based in the UK, actually, as it happens, but there's other companies that do these things all over the world, and we put together the chapter list, all the content that we wanted to talk about, and then they interviewed us, and we probably had 8 to 10 Zoom interviews for an hour, and then their editor put the text together. We then take a look at it. We go through a bit of a process where you try and put your own personalized bits into it and your own stamp on it, as it were. But you know what? It allowed us to write the book, and I'm not kidding you, in 3 months from start to finish. That book, which I'm proud of, by the way.
Great book.
We wrote in 3 months with the help of a company that specializes in doing these things.
It brings back the EASY. They were so good at what they did. When I read the first draft, I'm like, it was like I wrote it. It was like, because they took our words and they got to know us. And it is. And that, I think, is today, I think more than any, and I think Guy would agree, there's someone out there for everything today.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to look, right? And there is somebody that specializes in the expert. Let's take this back, Guy. Let's jump back into, you growing up in England. Tell me a little bit about, you said you started in like corporate America. Was the mantra for you as a kid, like, go to university, get educated, get a good job, have a career, and then all of a sudden you're doing that, right? Which is what probably I was told. I don't know, Dave, we were kind of told that in America. That was kind of the path. But if your parents are entrepreneurs like Dave and I's are, and I don't know about yours, Guy, but like you see people doing it a different way. And tell me a little bit about, like, as a kid, did you see yourself, owning businesses, investing, helping people with their estate, and these lawyers with, how they do law better? Tell me how you saw that as a kid.
No, I literally had no idea. And, my parents weren't entrepreneurs, actually. My mum was a teacher and then became a head teacher. And she was actually quite a force, because back in those days, becoming a head teacher as a woman was not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And she did that whilst having me and my sister as well. And, didn't take huge amount of time off work. And she never had a day off sick in her life, while she was working. Just, a little, like Dave was saying with his mum, a bit of a force of nature. And my dad had he sold ingredients for plastics, and that's what he did. He was, and we were kind of a middle class family. It was a really nice childhood. Nothing spectacular, but certainly not deprived at all. And yes, you're right. I mean, what I didn't know, right? So here's my little story. I found this out when I was early 30s that I was dyslexic, and actually quite heavily dyslexic, which kind of explained why I was in the I'm trying to phrase it better, but I'm just going to say it. I was in the thick class at school.
The
I
remedial.
was in the,
Yes.
yeah, I was, and
Remedial, we call that area.
yeah,
we call it remedial, right?
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
at school we called it the thick class, and but looking back, it was because I was just really poor at communicating, because I couldn't put stuff down on paper in the
Yeah.
way that my head was thinking, and it came out really badly. It just looked poor, because when you do traditional school exams, and the education system is broken in my view.
Yeah.
There's so much more we could do with people who aren't typically academic people, but are still brilliant at certain things. And schools aren't very good, in my opinion, at identifying what people are good at, their unique ability, and actually encouraging that, and helping them grow in that way. So if you don't fit the standard kind of academic route, which I didn't, then you don't necessarily do that well at school. And I did okay. I got 5 over levels. In all my friends were getting 9 and 10. I actually stayed on, did A levels. I got 2 E's, which is the lowest mark before a fail, and I got a C, which I was really pleased with. Right, so that was excellent. And I could have gone to university, but I actually chose not to, because I think, again, I love playing sport at school. Every lunch, I went to school to play sport, right? And I
Yeah.
love playing soccer, football, we call it. And every
Did you
lunchtime and
see
after
that? Like, did
school.
you see that? Was that a goal for you at one time? Like, hey, life on the pitch, like as
No,
a
I was
career?
never that good. No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, I was
I appreciate the
average.
personal
Man's got to
recognition.
know his limitations.
I
Well,
appreciate that awareness.
I was full of endeavour and
Yeah.
effort, and I was a good defender. And basically, no one got past me. So I either tackle them with the ball, or tackle them without the ball, one of
Yeah.
the two. So
Yeah.
I was a typical British defender
Yeah.
in those days.
Yeah.
And listen,
Not afraid of a red card. That's clearly.
not no no no. It's quite hard to get a red card at school, and but yeah, I was okay at sport, but I didn't excel at it. It was never going to be something I was going to make a career in, and I kind of knew that. But I enjoyed it. I've done sport all my life, and yeah. So so I at 17, actually, I was young for my class year. I left school and went out to work, and really enjoyed myself. And the bottom line is that every single job I've had, I've worked really hard at. I've tried my hardest. I've been
Mm.
good at some stuff, average at other stuff, but I've never been bad at anything, I don't think. Um, Not in the careers I've chosen. But I actually found my calling when I started the business. It was really tough to start with, because I had no training, I had no idea. I learned from making mistakes. But yeah, I absolutely love what I do now, and I wouldn't trade it in, even through the difficult times. And there were plenty of those as well.
Well,
You
I
know what
think.
I love,
Go ahead.
Trent?
Yeah, Dave.
Look at the dichotomy of Guy and I,
Yeah.
and yet we sit in the same place. Someone who did not go the university route.
Yep.
Me, college, CPA, law school, lawyer, right?
Yep.
All the traditional things, but both entrepreneurs. There's so many journeys there.
Yeah.
No one ever has to say, "Well, that's not for me because of X."
Yep.
Baloney.
Yep.
I love our picture. Our story's a great story.
Yep.
By being who we are, just shares what's possible for anyone.
For sure. I would also argue too that, as we talk about skills that we have, and I believe we all have God-given talents, and also there's things that we don't get, right? But what happens is like, hey, these trials raise up other skills, right? My guess is that Guy is an absolute doer. Like, he has learned to do a bunch of things because he's not going to read about it. And now I think, like, as you talk about education system, I would have never looked at YouTube 20 years ago and gone, hey, you want to see a video of how to do something? I didn't know that was it was going to be used for. I thought people were going to make stupid cat videos, right? And now all of a sudden it's like, hey, you want to learn how to change a tire on your car? You want to learn how to balance your checkbook? You want to learn how to, raise $14 million? Like, it's like, wait, what? It's all on YouTube, right? And you can watch video. People can educate you through audio, or I can go do it. We've learned that there's so many different ways to learn, that book reading, while valuable, is not just that's just one medium, right? There's lots of ways to learn, and upskilling other ways. My guess, Guy, has served you in tons of other ways by you going to put your head down and getting this great thing that so many kids today lack, called experience.
Yeah, do you know? I mean, one thing I would say, Trent, that I haven't mentioned so far is that I think Dave and I are great believers in mindsets, and certainly one of mindset is one of an opportunistic one. So I've never had a plan in life, literally never had a plan. But what I've done is, when there have been opportunities where I've gone, do you know, that sounds kind of cool, I'm going to try it, and I take the risk and I try it, and nothing I've done has been planned. Even when I left school, it was like, right, okay, what do I do now? So I applied for a few jobs, and retail seemed like you didn't really need any particular skill set to be a retailer. So
Nice guy.
so I went there, and what I learned there, the big thing I learned in retail is, I was working in stores with 350 people and managing pretty sizable teams, and I learned how to manage people at a really young age. That served me amazingly throughout my life. My
Yes.
biggest core skill is actually, now I've done this unique ability day, and you find out a little bit about yourself on that day, that one of my core skills is building unique teams. And I realized that I'm only good at certain things, and the stuff I'm not good at and the stuff I don't enjoy, I bring in other people to help me with those who actually enjoy doing it and are really good at those things. And that's one of the key principles I now live my life by. And that has allowed me to move from working within one organization and one company and doing, a role within that company, to working across, at the moment, 8 different companies, 2 of which I own, with business partners, and still do them justice, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah. Dave, I want to come back to this risk thing because I think it's really important. But Dave, talk to me about you, man. Like, I mean, are you saying, hey, I'm a central New York kid that, hey, I'm going to go and light Manhattan on fire as a lawyer in my life, and wait till they get me, and I'm going to be, setting courtrooms on fire. Is that what you thought when you were a kid? What were you thinking?
It's the funniest thing. I was, so my parents were in the wholesale food business, and they were Italian importers, right? By my last name, I'm not Irish, but although I did my DNA, I have some English in me, guy. But but I remember we used to pack spices. We'd have these big 100-pound barrels of oregano and parsley, and we had to put them in little bottles, And that was we had and I remember I was 5 and 6 years old. I would get paid for my parents $0.25 a case. And I was the youngest of 10 kids. My mother had, you ready for this? For any women, you're going to cringe. My mother had 11 children in 12 years, no twins. Okay. Oh. So when you think about that, 9 of them were boys. So all my older siblings, when they got in doing that packing, that spicing, they weren't like me. I set up system. I would organize. They would do 1 bottle at a time. And I would unload 10, 20 cases on the place. I would funnel it all in. I would wipe it down. I'd have a system, and by the time I was done, I had the tallest stack, and I was the youngest child, right? So part of it, I think, is innate. I got a paper route. I did it 1 day a week, and I made more money than my neighbor friend who was the same age as me, who did it 6 days a week. I trained my clients to leave the money. I would collect once a month instead of once a week. All these little things, but I learned it from observing. So Guy learned on the job. He learned life's lessons. I watched my mom and dad run a company, and in 25 years that they ran it, while I was growing up, they increased it 37-fold. My mom ran the business. She was the numbers person. She was like the executive. My dad, everybody loved him. He was the sales guy. I was blessed to get a little bit of both, right? And so I just, that was my life I had growing up. So I just started to apply it. I was in the 8th grade, and a family friend visited, said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" The famous question. I said, "I have no idea." He says, "Well, I'm a lawyer. You ought to think about being a lawyer." I'm like, "Sure, I'll be a lawyer." And that's kind of what it was, but not the litigating type. Although I was always a talker, so everybody thought I was going to be a litigator. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
Dave's always talking himself out of everything. But I don't like confrontation. I want to
Mm.
solve problems. I don't want to be. I don't want to be. I want to take people who are conflicting. I'm great at resolutions. Having two sides that are challenged, I've always been good at helping them find a happy medium going forward. And so that's kind of where like Guy says, you got to find your strength. So my strength has always been helping others see the greatness in themselves and play into their possibility. That's kind of my thing. So Guy's great at building teams. I'm good at setting vision, helping enroll people into things they didn't know were possible. Those are the things that I like to do and say, look, anything's possible. Like Guy and I talking here, anything's possible. And there's no one path. It's mindset. And my mother, and again, my mother was a strong influence. As Guy said, his mother, outliers, right? My mother took over the family business and was the CEO and owner in 1965. There was no woman-owned businesses back then, right?
Yeah, right.
But what she always said was probably the best advice I ever got. She always said, put your head down, work hard. There's the next magic part. Give people more than they expect, and the rest will happen. And that's the biggest thing I've found over the years is you've got to focus on them, not you. If you focus on you and what you want, it's like being on a treadmill. When you really understand what the need is, identifying the need in the marketplace, whatever that need is. When Guy was doing that grocery store or wherever he was at, his need was to get that team united. Find the need and solve the need. And I think that's the thing. Head down, work hard, give people more than they expect. Get into their perspective. Be a value creator. If you create value, you'll never work a day in your life, and you'll never want a day in your life. People will seek you out.
Love that. Let's come back, Guy, to the time that you were down. When was there a time in your life where you're just up against it and down but not out, as they say, but like feeling like, man, this is losing your confidence, like in a spot. There's a lot of people right now after COVID. They're like, man, my life, it's not right. Um, you just went on a podcast, right? Honey, I blew up the business, right? Like, I mean, and a lot of us are having those conversations with our wives over stuff during COVID. Our restaurant owner friends. I mean, it's a tough go right now for a lot of people, and they may be facing some challenge and adversity. I assume you've been there before. Can you take us through a time that you were there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there was a few occasions in the first, I don't know, decade of the business. I mean, the last 7 years were just a roller coaster, but a good one. It's just a lot going on, but it was growing, and we 10 times every multiple in those last 7 years. But as I said, alluded to before, the first 10 years were tough because I had no experience and I just had to learn from mistakes and so on. And I was fortunate in the fact that my business partner was technically really gifted, and that became apparent really quickly. So we didn't start just doing, back in 2001, just websites. We were doing websites with database backends, which was actually quite new at that particular point.
Yeah.
And so we got into more and more kind of complex systems.
So Cake Solutions didn't actually make cake. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no, yeah. Do you know, I'll tell you a quick story, Trent. We had several calls where one lady in particular said, I've been let down she phoned us up. I've been let down on a mobile phone running. You could hear her running up some stairs. She was out of breath. I've been let down by my supplier. I've seen you guys. I've looked you up in, I think it was like the Yellow Pages, so not even online. She found us in one of the old-fashioned paper books that no one knows about nowadays unless you're of a certain age. And she was running up the stairs, and she said, my daughter's getting married tomorrow. I need a cake. Can you help me out, please? I'm literally on the second floor. I know you guys are on the fourth floor. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to tell this poor woman? We build software, we don't make cakes.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh no. Anyway, so there's nothing we could do to help her, but I hope she found a wedding cake. But we went through some hard times, right? And one in particular actually was both business hard and personal hard. And quite often that is the case. When your business is struggling, it quite often reflects sometimes in the way that your personal life is going as well. I'd got a young family. I'd just bought a house at auction, which meant usually that it was a wreck and it needed a load of work in it.
Right.
And it did, and we knew what we were buying, right? So it was fine. But the business was going through a really tough time, and we were literally 2 weeks away from running out of cash altogether. And we had no backup. Didn't have rich parents. Rob didn't have rich parents, and we had no kind of plan B really. We didn't have enough credit with the bank to get any bigger overdraft or anything like that. We were, really it would have been curtains, I think, at that point. And we had one opportunity, and by this point, I'd paid the wages on my credit card. I'd got this house that it hadn't even got heating in it. In the UK, and sometimes it's not so warm.
Yeah. Right.
There was just a ton of stuff, going on. And we had one opportunity that came along, and it was like, I can't say the word I want to say, but something or bust is the word I'm looking for.
Right. Yeah.
And we just went for it, and actually Rob led the presentation. He was the more confident out of the two of us, and I was there and worked with him on it, and we delivered this presentation, and we won what at that time was a huge piece of business for us, that actually then was the catalyst for us to improve and improve and improve and improve. And that, you learn lessons from everything. And the lesson I learned was that I really needed to look at the way that we marketed the organization. The first 2 years were easy because all I did, we worked in this big old cotton mill that had been converted. And there's loads of those in Manchester area, because we were, the start of the Industrial Revolution was from Manchester with all the clothes trade and so on. And there was loads of these cotton mills. We were in there, and there was 60 other companies. So all I did was, the first 2 years, knocked on every single door and said, look, this is what we do. If you ever need any of these services, let us know. And we got 2 years of business from that. Yeah. But then I didn't have a plan B after that. And it was like, right, okay, now I've used up that option. There's nothing left.
I shot all the fish in the barrel.
Yeah.
Could have moved to a new building.
I need a new barrel.
Maybe that would have been a good idea. But we were also beginning to work with bigger companies, so we just needed different ways of marketing. So it forced me into looking at how we marketed the business, and my sales techniques and so on. So it was a good learning. Every bad experience has a learning experience from it, and you learn, you move on, and you just don't do that same mistake again.
And I've heard a lot of people talk about the value of no plan B. I mean, there's no going back, right? There's either like, hey, we need to go in and sell this thing. And sometimes, it's kind of like that urgency, right? We're back to Parkinson's law, where the rise of urgency with time all of a sudden comes in, like, hey, listen, we're either going to go and knock this thing out, or the kids aren't going to get dinner. We got to do it because we don't have a plan B. Banks are saying no, like, we don't have anything to fall back on. So we just have to do it. And I think sometimes, man, that's exactly the push people need.
And you accept, I think when you become an entrepreneur, you have to accept that there's going to be good and bad times. And, I think and you always needed a degree of luck, right? So, it happened that we had that one opportunity. So that was our luck. We then made the most of that luck by winning that piece of work and doing everything we could to win that piece of work. And it was a really, it was actually began a 5-year relationship with that organization after that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna adapt that a little bit. I would say, good. If you're an entrepreneur, there's good and there's challenging times, and sometimes those challenging times, while feel bad, right, they end up being the catalyst for the change that you need. Like, that challenge became the catalyst of your better marketing, of your hitting these bigger companies better, more pointed, and really taking you hockey stick growth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually, I mean, we talk about books now. It kind of, if you look at the way that companies marketed themselves, back in the day, it was maybe advertising in magazines, it was phone calls, it was, all the kind of old-fashioned stuff that what we consider to be old-fashioned now. But we wrote books, and we demonstrated expertise by writing. I've got them on the bookcase behind me. We wrote 5 books. One of them was like 1,200 pages of technical stuff. And if you're not technical, it was a great cure for insomnia, or it was a good doorstop, But if you were technical, it was a Bible. But that's one of the solutions we came up with. We demonstrated expertise using books. Then we moved on. We moved with the times. We became bloggers, and then we became podcasters. And we kind of moved each time. And actually, I think now, because there's a lot of people doing podcasts nowadays, and there's a lot of people blogging, I actually think books have become relevant again, because it's more unusual to be presented with a book and say, we've wrote the book, we are genuine experts in this stuff. So I think things have gone full circle slightly.
Dave, talk to me about your experience. I mean, tell me about a time you had. I love the quote from Chris McChesney and Sean Covey in the 4 Disciplines of Execution. It says, winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. So tell me about one of those times in your life where, hey, like the scoreboard's clear, we are not winning, like it's not going right. The measurements that we were taking are all going wrong, and we got to do something different.
Well, I had a laugh. You said when you posed with the guy, you said, when was there a time? I'm like, time? How many times? It's like every other week sometimes. But,
Yes.
Here's the thing. But it goes back to mindset. It goes back to a whole bunch of things. So again, for me, I was in the legal industry, still am, right? So I still have an active law firm. 2001, right? We had the tech burst. At the time, I was launching a tech company back then called Yappa with a buddy of mine. We had $8 million invested at the time from some of the top people on Wall Street. They loved it. And then the tech bubble burst. And it was financing all things, said we got to shut it down. The funny thing was that company that we had is what now LinkedIn is. So it's really funny because people say, oh my God, you guys had LinkedIn. This was 1999, 2000. But anyway, the biggest one that affected me was I was growing my law firm. Again, I train lawyers on how to build successful law firms in the estate planning, elder law, and asset protection area of law. And I had built a successful law firm that was profitable with me running it. The next level is what we call robust, where you start to bring on other attorneys. And then ultimately you get to the level it's called e-freedom, entrepreneurial freedom, where the firm runs without you. And so I was at a point where I was growing the firm. I had 5 lawyers, and we were killing it. I had a great person, director of operations, who we had made 37 months in a row of goal. We had kept cranking up the goal, 37 months straight. I had office staff making $8 an hour at the time, which was minimum wage, get $2,000 and $3,000 Christmas bonuses. I mean, We were just cranking it and doing really, really well. And then the mortgage bubble burst, right? 2008, the market crashed. I will tell you, we were cranking. And then it came to be September, October of 2009, I think it was. And all of a sudden, business just stopped. I mean, we were cranking. We had 120 leads a month coming in, and 80 were getting converted, or 60, 75, and it just stopped, like dead. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's a good thing I have all these reserves because I'm good. We can go another month. The next month came and it was dead again. And then dead again. And it was like, oh, this isn't going away. And we all know from 2008 that period of time went well beyond. It really was back to 2012, a 3 or 4 year period that was really dramatically changed. Well, it changed my firm. I went from 22 people in 3 months down to 11. And Guy said it earlier, and it could have put a dagger in me, not him saying it, but reminded me, there's not only the challenges of the loss of business, but the challenge of the loss of relationship. All of those people I lost, I liked. They were great people. They worked. We had a great community. We had a great community of people in our office, and we worked well together. The interesting thing is all 4 of them all went and opened their own firms and competed with me now. But we're friendly competitors. But that's part of the cost, right? Of these external factors, right? Internal factors are one thing, right? When there's something that you're doing, so a guy, maybe not having a marketing strategy in place. This was something I had no control of. I mean, COVID was another example of that. The funny part was when COVID happened, it actually turned out to be the best year ever of my life because learning from the last time, we shifted, pivoted. We were pivoted before people even knew what was happening. But I saw it come. I'm like, okay, here we go again. I know what to do now. We never lost an employee. In fact, we added employees during COVID, and we grew. And that's what I say. It's those outside factors, and it's being prepared that sometimes you do lose. But again, I'm still friendly with all those people. I still communicate with many of them. We're friendly competitors in the marketplace. I believe there's enough business for everybody. But those are the hardest things, the things you can't control. And like I said, you're raising a family at the same time and you got all those issues and needs. And you know what? Here's another thing. There's an old saying. I had an old business partner that used to, she was the queen of what she called the entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
And there's a big term people say, are you an entrepreneur? I love entrepreneurs. I love employing entrepreneurs. They do everything entrepreneurs do except one thing. So in all my years of working with entrepreneurs, I understood the distinction. Entrepreneurs will do everything I will do except take financial risk. They're adverse to financial risk. And so their willingness to do all the things I am to be, to do the R&D, to figure it out, to find out what the value is, how to bring value, they're all there. They just don't want to put their checkbook on the line. They don't want to be the one at risk when that market crashes or when there's those outside.
Lose the mortgage, man. That's right.
And that's the difference of an entrepreneur. We are risk takers. And that's part of our DNA. My wife, God bless her, we've been married 32 years happily. We got beautiful kids, grandchildren now. And I will say she ultimately had to trust me all the time. And it's hard because they're not in the seats we're in. They don't see the day-to-day. My wife, who was a CPA, was my CFO for many years. It was very hard for her to see this, especially when she was removed. And I had brought other CFOs in and she started being more like at the executive level, the monitor. She's like, holy shit, what are you going to do? I'm like, honey, I'll figure it out. Don't worry. I'll get there. And that's what it is. It's trust. It's stress. There's those moments. But I think, Guy, you'd agree, getting through them brings you to a whole new level and a whole new plateau. I always say breaking through the ceiling of one challenge brings you to the floor of a whole nother opportunity.
Yeah, I think that, that's exactly it. I think when we talked about risk earlier, once you take on some risk and you beat it, you get confident that you can beat it again, right? Like, hey, I'm going to take some calculated risk, and you get better at managing risk. And like, I can't imagine, Guy, your wife being CFO when you got to do payroll on your credit card. She's like, I'm divorcing you now. Like, right? Like, you're putting payroll on Visa, right? I mean, it's crazy.
I think it's trust again, isn't it, Trent? Dave talked about that. It is having trust in what we're doing. And, she said to me once, look, it doesn't matter what happens. If we have to start again, we have to start again. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine, kind of thing. And that means an awful lot. You need that support behind you to do it. I sheltered her from an awful lot of the stuff that went on because it just wasn't, it wasn't necessary. It was my responsibility to kind of deal with that and grow the business and kind of do what we've done. And the ironic thing is, you're talking about risk. I've never been one for betting. I used to, some people go to the football or the horse racing and they put money on, and £10 here, £50 here, £100 there, whatever.
It's because it's
I don't like doing. I don't like doing that. But I'm quite happy to bet $1 million or £1 million on an idea and a company.
And yourself, right, Guy? When you're betting on
yourself. That's right.
Yeah.
You got control. You got a degree of
control. You got control in it. To give money to some third party who the odds are against you to begin with is nonsense. And if you ever notice, the people who do that are not typically the people that can.
That's right. That's right. It should be. Yeah.
Those of us that have earned it knows what it takes, and we don't want to throw it away on stuff like that. I'll throw it away on people. I'll invest in people all day long.
I want to wrap it up with the quotes, what you go to when times are tough. While you're thinking through that, couple great things. The risk is real, right? And understand the risk, the good and the challenging and the lessons and everything. That's so good, Guy. And trust. You both talked about that. The trust in yourself, the trust in handshake deal, looking across and knowing, hey, I can trust this person and we share values. You both talked about working hard. Hard work is just, you can't, that's the one thing that everyone gets to control, and it takes no skill, right? And there's a lot of things that take no skill, like being kind to people takes no skill, right? And working hard takes no skill, and I think people miss that. Um, I love being a value creator, Dave. I think that's really important. And solving a need, like give the people what they want. They're looking for a solution. How can we resolve this and get paid to do it, right? I think that's really important. I always I was given a good mentor, Don Hanna, years ago, and he told me, hey, is there a need? Is it being filled? Can you get paid to fill it? And can you actually fill that need? Like if you got those four things, hey, your risk might be well worth it. And if we can get those four things right, we feel like we put a lot of risk behind us, and our risk level will go up if we know it's all there, those four things. So, Guy, real quick, is there a quote that you go to? Is there something that you do when things are not going exactly the way you wish, and you want to get back to that?
I wouldn't say a quote, but my thinking, my mindset always goes back to my unique ability. So when things aren't going well, how can I deal with that? And if I can't, who can I bring in? Who's my who? There are who's out there who love doing the stuff that you're not good at and you don't want to do, and they love it. And so that's what I always go back to when things aren't going well. I peel back and go, okay, right, how do we put this right? And who do I need around me to help me put that right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be self-reliant. Love that. Dave, how about you?
So two thoughts come to mind. I think Gandhi said, be the change you want in the world, right? So for me, it's always about, you can't want something without being willing to put your neck out first, and to be the first one to lead. And then that whole thing of trust that Guy and I have talked about. I had the other problem where I trusted everybody, and sometimes my wife would say I trust everybody too much. So I developed a second saying that do what your heart tells you, up until the point when your head says enough. In other words, we lead with heart. I just love people. But some people are not nice, and they start a certain way. That's no judgment. It's okay to lead with your heart. It's okay to be kind to people first. It's okay to give before you receive it. Those really are. At some point, though, let your brain kick in and say, this is a toxic relationship, whether it's business or not. That's always been something that's guided me. Do what your heart tells you up to the point when your head says enough.
I love it. I'm going back to, for you guys, an oldie but a goodie. Like there's no I in team. You guys both talk about the value of other people and how much they've brought to you. Finding your who. Like you don't have to be self-reliant to get out of a problem, right? There's a lot of people who will come alongside and help. And shoring up like, hey, I'm not the best at everything. So why am I not getting teammates to help me along the way? And we can be better together, right? We're back to the old strands of the rope. Like, one strand is easily broken. Weave 8 strands together, and all of a sudden you're not knocking that thing, you're not breaking that thing very easily. So love that, guys. For Dave Zumpano and Guy Remond, thank you so much for being on the Winners Find a Way show. This is awesome. I am at Trent M. Clark or Leadershipity on all the social media handles. You can see us at leadershipity.com. Make sure to look for our upcoming ebook, The Pyramid of Leadershipity, or you can DM or email me directly at Trent@Leadershipity. If you want to find out more on that. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of the Winners Find a Way show. We work diligently to find you 1%ers like Dave and Guy, who deliver every single time. And it's just simply awesome. So rate us 5 stars and check us out on all the platforms. Thanks, guys, for coming on. So appreciated. Thanks for everything. All right. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Trent.
Thanks, Trent.